Okay, let's just start, right? Uh, we were talking about compensating wage differentials. Yes, I am recording. My God, you guys are so hung up on. Yes, I am going to start from the beginning. So we were talking about compensating wage differential, right? Because we know that not all job is the same. Some jobs have really good attributes and some jobs have not so desirable attributes, right? Some jobs are inherently risky, some are very pleasant, some are like, have lot of traveling, like, people have to go and to remote places or have to commute to areas which is that are not safe, right? Like, let's say a reporter, they have to go to war zones or infected areas. Think about essential workers like bankers and um, hospital staff who, like, who have to work amidst lots of things like, COVID or any such thing, any pandemic or any outbreak of diseases. So they have to work. So, but then some jobs are very pleasant. So, like, people usually in our part of the world, they like government jobs, right? Due to COVID, right, most of the private sectors had the salary deduction because of the whole economy was shut down and not many people actually went to office because they had to shut down their offices, right? But like only the public sector
Professor,
workers. Yes, can you hear me or not? Yes, go ahead.
Professor, we don't have exam today.
No, our exam is next Tuesday. Where have you been?
Professor, no, I thought this Thursday.
Thursday. No, where have you been? Like, did you attend any of my classes?
Professor, I attend all time is interrupting. That's why.
All right. So basically, I'm sorry about all the interruptions. It was beyond my control. I'm sorry about this. Our exam is going to be on next Tuesday. Okay, next week. All right. So, like, you get the point. So some jobs are has desirable attributes, and some jobs have not so desirable attributes. And not only, like, there's only one or two attributes. Some jobs have, like, every job has many like, many characteristics or many attributes, like some like, in terms of payment, in terms of work environment, in terms of colleague, in terms of pension plan, in terms of the location, in terms of, like, a policy about sick leaves, like so many things, right? When you are choosing between option A and option B, so let's say you are offered two jobs, you just don't look at the salary level, right? You look at many other things before deciding on a particular, like, offer. The reason is, like, everything comes as a bundle. Some of the bundles are, like, some of the attributes. It's okay, Dema. Like, we just started. So some of the attributes cannot be priced in terms of the market. Your hours of work, like, that is the salary payment, the wage rate. That is easily, you can say, okay, my hours are going to be rewarded this way. But your sincerity, or, like, so how are they? That is going to be rewarded. So you want to know the uh, like, company policy for this, and then, like, you want to know the if you become sick, how is the, like, company going to treat you? Are they going to provide you help or any sort of health insurance? So these are many things that you consider. Okay, so some of them are not, like, you cannot assign a price to them. Okay, because sometimes the salaries, like, may not be enough. You want to work in an environment that inspires you, or that, like, that promotes your creativity, that like, respects you as as an individual, right? So these are also important to us. So we might actually accept a lower salary because we have to like the job we do, right? Because you're going to doing you will be employed here, you have to go to office, right, 5 days a week and stay there for long period of time. So the office colleagues are going to become your family, and if their family members are not so good, then obviously you're going to be miserable. Okay, so that is again very important. But how do you, what is the market value for work environment? There's no way, like, you cannot assign a price. Okay, so but that is an important, like, determinant or parameter in your utility maximizing decision, like, which job is going to give you the highest utility. So the hedonic pricing model, right, allows us to look into these things that is kind of depends on individual preferences. So you can bring in, like, how individual decide, which sometimes may not be, like, may, they assigned a market valuation. Okay, so to and of course we understand one thing, like, if you ask some people to accept a offer or accept a job that has undesirable attributes, the salary or the other attributes has to be compensating enough to induce these people to accept this particular offer instead of the other one. Now, if you contrast this with the unemployment situation, right? When there are a lot of people waiting for jobs, so in that situation, these things doesn't really matter, right? We'll say, okay, you got a job, that's good enough. We don't really care about what type of job, right? Not many people have the luxury of choosing. But remember, this is a new classical full employment model. So, like, if there is always a guarantee that you have a job. Now you are maximizing utility. You when, like, depending on your preference pattern, what job you will choose. So don't contrast it with the situation that is prevailing in, like, in our part of the world or any part of the world. Like, there is no unemployment. This is a full employment model. So everybody has a job. Now everybody is going to choose according to their preference pattern. Okay, to do this, obviously, whenever you bring in utility, you need to bring in indifference curves, right? We are going to maximize indifference. We are going to maximize individual utility based on the desirable attributes of a job. So we have to bring in the utility and the indifference curve. Okay. And we know that if you have a desirable attribute and an undesirable attribute, right, because we are talking about compensating wage differential, we are going to have a bad, that is risk of injury, and we are going to have a good salary, that is what we all like, higher salary. So this is something we really like. In this situation, the indifference curve is going to be a, like, upward sloping curve. The reason is that, if someone faces higher risk of injury, the individual has to be compensated with higher level of wage rate to become indifferent, to stay indifferent, right? So that's why it's going to be upward sloping. All right. And the other thing to notice is that it initially it's fatter, but eventually it becomes very steeper as you increase the risk of injury. The reason is, like, when you're at lower level of risk, let's say at point A, right? Then if you go to point A, you're significantly reducing risk, right, from A to B, right? But you don't see that much of a increase in weight rate, because at this lower level of risk, a little more risk is, it's okay, it's acceptable, and then you do not deserve, you're not thinking or asking for a higher salary to compensate you for the increase in riskiness. But when you are already, like, in a very precarious situation, the riskiness is too high, a little bit more will basically be life threatening, right? You are already at sea where there's a significant amount of risk. So at this point, you will ask for significant rise in wage rate, because the same level of increase in the level increase is the same. So it's the same level of increase in A to B and C to D, right? The riskiness is the same, but you can see that because your preference for riskiness is at this point, you say, okay, if I increase a little bit, I'm going to die. So If you want me to take this risk, if you want me to go from C to D, then I would, like, ask for significant increase in salary level to stay indifferent between C and D. Okay, so we see that this is going to be, the shape is going to be like this. The indifference curve is going to be upward sloping, and this is basically convex, right? Increasing at an increasing rate. All right. So this is basically the indifference curve. Now, which way will the higher indifference curves work? We can see that it's going to be facing northwest, because for the same level of riskiness, if we look at, so so for the same level of riskiness, right? Oh, I want a different color. So for the same level of riskiness, you can see that U1A offers, for individual A, U1 offers a higher level of wage rate than U0, and U2 offers a even higher level of wage rate for the same level of riskiness. So obviously U2 is preferred to U1 and to U0. Okay, so the higher indifference curve was going to be pointing this way. Okay, so this is going to be the direction of higher level of indifference curves. Okay. Now, two people are different in terms of their level of riskiness, tolerance level, right? Not everybody is the same. So we see that in this situation, individual B, for the same level of increase in riskiness from R0 to R1, individual B requires only a small increase in wage rate to stay indifferent. But individual, A requires a significant increase in wage rate to stay indifferent. That means that individual A is more risk averse than individual B. That means the take home message is that the steeper the indifference curve is, the greater is the level of riskiness, the risk averseness. Okay, so this is where we stopped last class. So today we will start from the isoprofit curves. Any confusion about the indifference curves or the hedonic pricing model and what we are trying to do? Basically, you have to know where we are going with this, all of this, right? So any question? Okay, so basically, just uh, the take home message up to this point is we are trying to figure out how much compensation is required to accept a riskier job, right? So the degree of compensation that varies with the level of riskiness. That's basically what we are trying to identify. To do this, we are adopting the hedonic pricing model that looks at the risk of injury and the wage rate and how individual chooses between different occupations depending on their preferences and the maximizing their utility. To do this, we have to first talk about the indifference curves, that is relating the risk of injury with the wage rate. So one good and one bad. Okay, that's why, because there's one good and one bad, the indifference curves are going to be upward sloping, and the steeper the indifference curve, the greater is the risk averseness. Okay, so this is where we start. Today, now we'll start with the isoprofit curve. So this is the individual part. Now we are talking about the farm side, right? The demand side. So the farms basically are there to maximize profit. Now the farms are also face the same trade-off. So there is a riskiness and wage rate. if the farm reducing risk in our employment is very costly for the farm. So because the farm has to take safety measures, it has to buy equipment, so reducing risk is costlier for the farm. Okay. And if the farm has to, like, obviously it wants to maximize profit, um, to do this, to involve the hedonic pricing model, we need to develop the ISO profit curve. That means we need to have a curve that has, for different levels of risk of injury and salary level, it has the same level of profit, right? So ISO profit curve is a curve that has the same level of profit for different combinations of risk of injury and wage rate. So this is an ISO profit curve that's profit level is 0 for farm X, right? So for every point on this ISO profit curve represents 0 level of profit. The profit level stays same, but you can see that when level of risk is high, let's say some point over here, uh, so when the level of risk is high, right? So the farm is not actually doing anything to reduce risk. So the farm can actually offer higher wage rates to the employees, right? But when the level of risk is low, that means the farm is spending a lot of money to reduce risk, because reducing risk is costlier for the farm. So in this situation, the farm cannot offer the higher wage rate. The farm has to offer lower wage rate to stay indifferent with this point, right? So this is a point with high risk and high offer of wage rate. Because the farm can afford to offer higher wage rate, it's because it's not spending any money on reducing riskiness. But at lower level of risk, that means the farm is significant. To reduce risk from this point to this point, the farm is actually spending a lot of money because reducing risk is costly. So in that situation, the farm cannot afford to pay a higher wage rate. So the wage rate has to be reduced significantly to stay indifferent, right? So to maintain the same level of profit, or to stay on the same ISO profit line. Okay. So ISO profit line is going to be again upward sloping, but it's going to be concave. So basically it is saying that the slope of the ISO profit curve is telling you that the concave shape is telling you that reducing risk is costlier, and the marginal cost of reducing risk, right, rises as the level of risk is reduced. So like, if you're moving in this direction, leftward movement, right, you're moving along the ISO, you're moving along this graph. If you go downwards, the riskiness is reduced, so the marginal cost is actually going to be higher. Look at the steepness. The lower the risk, right, the greater is the cost of reducing the risk. So the wage rate has to be reduced significantly. So the cost is actually increasing, so the wage offer has to be reduced significantly. Okay, so the slope of the ISO profit curve shows you the marginal cost of reducing risk become bigger, right? The greater is, the lower is the level of risk. That means the risk reduction, the greater is the risk reduction effort. Okay. Okay. Now let's say, like, there are three isoprofit curves, right? So let's say for the same farm X, okay? So this is like, zero isoprofit curve, and this is the situation. So that means, like, for the same level of risk, for the same level of risk, right? In this graph, right, the farm is offering a significantly lower wage rate. So that means the profit is much better. And this is isoprofit with zero profit. Okay, zero level of profit. So we can see that if this is the zero iso profit curve, and this is obviously going to be, any curve below this is going to be reflecting positive level of profit, because for the same level of risk reduction effort, the farm is offering much lower wage rate. So obviously this curve reflects a positive level of profit if this is the zero isoprofit curve. And obviously any curve or on this side, like on the upper side of this zero isoprofit curve, right, on top of this is going to reflect a negative isoprofit curve because the profit is going to be negative. For the same level of risk, it's offering a higher wage rate. If this is zero isoprofit, then obviously this is going to be negative isoprofit. Okay. So what does that mean? That means if your higher level of profits are going to be in this direction. Okay. So this is basically isoprofit curve. Now consider two farms, right? Farm X and farm Y. All right. Now both farms are at R0 level of risk. Okay. And they both want to reduce risk to R1. So we can see that, like, to reduce risk from R0 to R1, right? Farm Y, look at farm Y. Okay, from R0 to R1, the farm 1 has to reduce salary from W0 to W1. Such significant, there's a huge drop from this point to this point, right? This much. But for farm X, the reduction in wage rate is only from W0 to, it's going down, so it's going only W1X, right? So that means, like, the steeper the, like, the farm that has a higher marginal cost of reducing risk will have a steeper isoprofit curve. Okay, because this part of farm Y's curve is much steeper. Okay, so at risk level to the left of R0, right, we will see that, like, farm Y will not be able to offer a higher wage rate, but farm X will be able to offer a higher wage rate because the marginal cost of risk reduction is lower for farm X. So farm X can reduce risk at a lower cost than farm Y. So the steeper the isoprofit curve, the greater is the marginal cost of risk reduction. Okay, so at this point, and of course it varies, like, at which point of the isoprofit curve the farm is at, but at this point, right, to the risk level to the left of R0, right, if the farm wants to reduce risk, it has to be offering a lower wage rate, but we can see that farm Y needs to offer significantly less wage rate than farm X because the marginal cost of risk reduction for farm Y is much greater. Okay, but if you go to the right, the scenario is, like, different. We can see that for the same level of risk, right, because it's flatter, the curve is becoming flatterer. So for the same level of risk, we can see that farm Y is able to offer a higher wage rate than farm X. Okay, so farm Y to the right of R0, farm Y will be at higher levels of risk, right? At higher level of risk, like, farm Y has, like, the, because it's none of the farms are reducing risk, but farm X at this point has, like, relatively higher cost of risk reduction, so it has to offer a lower wage rate. Okay, so let's move on. So we have the isoprofit, the farm side, right? And we also have the indifference curve. Now we are going to bring in the employer and employees together. So to match them to, like, so that the employees choose their occupation depending on the salary level and the level of risk. And the farms also find, like, remember, any job is a two-way matching. So the farms also find employees that is going to accept their offer of riskiness and the wage offer. Okay, so look at this scenario before we move on to the the matching between employer and employee. This is crucial. Look at, there are two firms X and Y, as we have said. For risk level, any risk level between R0 and R1, right? Between R0 and R1, we can see that compared to firm Y, firm X is able to offer higher wage rates, right? W0 and W1. But look at, firm Y. Firm Y is going to be offering, firm Y cannot offer even any job offer at this lower level of risk. So even if at R1 the salary level is going to be less than farm X's. So for any risk level to the left of this intersection point, right? Let's say this is, so I'm just reflecting capital R to look at the intersection between X and Y. Okay, to the left of this R, this level of risk R, we can see that no one is going to accept offers from farm Y, because farm Y is going to offer significantly lower wage rate. Only farm X is going to be offering higher wage rates for the same level of risk. So all the workers are going to choose jobs from farm X, right? To the left of R. All right. Now to the right of R, we can see that because farm at this higher level of risk, farm Y can offer significantly higher wage rate than farm X, right? So in this situation, nobody is going to offer except the offer from farm X. Everybody is going to accept offer from farm Y. So what do we observe? To the right of R, this capital R, everybody is going to take jobs in farm Y, and to the left of R, everybody is going to accept jobs from farm X. Okay, is this part clear? Now can someone tell me, how can two isoprofits curve intersect? Can they actually intersect?
These are different from professor.
Excellent, well done. Right? So we know that for the same farm, this is the scenario that the lower the isoprofit curve, the greater is the profit level, and they are going to be, they will never intersect, because otherwise we will get into trouble. But these are, we are talking about two different farms, so obviously they can intersect, and we know that given this situation, right, to the right of this blue R, capital R, all the offers from X will be accepted, and to the right of this capital R, all the offers from Y will be accepted. To the left of this R, no offers from farm Y will be accepted by employees, and to the right of this capital R, no offers from farm X will be accepted by employees. Okay. Now in real life, right, in real life, there are thousands and thousands of farms, and they have a isoprofit locus like this. So what will happen, we can actually think of a offer curve, wage risk offer curve, that is consistent of the upper part. It's an envelope of the right and like if you look at this, so from for this for up to this point of risk, all the offers of this firm will be accepted. Up to, for this level of risk between this intersection point and this intersection point, because this offers a higher wage rate, right? So all the job offers of this firm will be accepted. Similarly, from this intersection to this intersection, all the offers from this farm will be accepted. So basically, we are thinking about the top and upper part of every offer curve that is enveloped by this wage risk offer curve. that part is going to be only those jobs are going to be accepted by the employees. So that's why, like, we are only going to consider that, like, the top and upper part. These, like, none of the jobs in these segments, like, will ever be accepted by employees, so they become redundant. Okay, so the, like, for the practical purpose, we are only going to consider these offer curve of risk of injury and wage rate, right? Wage offer curve. Now, how is the matching going to take place? So let's bring in our indifference curve, right? So for individual A, right, this is the wage offer locus. So all the infinite number of firms is going to be, like, considered in this wage offer. Their top part, right, is, it's like, is enveloped in this wage offer curve. So we are with this wage offer curve that is available in the market, we are bringing in individual A and individual A's indifference curve. We can see that this individual, like, is going to choose this, like, these firms employment. So basically this are a level of risk and will accept WA salary and will choose this particular job offer, right? So what does that mean actually? It means that this individual is accepting, so there's a typo, this would be Rx and this would be Ry, right? So this individual, like individual A, is taking the offer from farm X. Remember farm X, this is going to be X, this is a typo, right? So offer from farm X, because farm X is offering lower level of risk. For lower level of risk is going to offer the highest possible salary compared to farm Y, right? And we know that the steeper the indifference curve, the risk averse the individual is. So these are risk averse individual is going to accept the highest possible salary for lower level of risk. So the matching happens between farm X and individual A. All right. Now you bring in individual B, and we know that individual B is relatively risk loving compared to individual A, so has flatter indifference curve, and we see that individual B's like, offer indifference curve is tangent to the offer curve at this point. So at RB level of risk with WB salary level. So that means is that individual B is going to accept the offer for farm Y, because we know that farm Y basically can offer higher wage rates when risk levels are very high, because they are not doing anything to reduce risk. So farm Y can actually offer really high salaries, and the risk loving individual will rather love this job compared to a low paying job with low risk. So we see that this is how the matching takes place, right? Risk averse individuals are going to accept, like, lower level of wage salaries for low level of risk, because they do not like risk. Where the people who are, like, risk loving, they would be, like, accepting a higher salary for higher level of risk. Now you can say that, okay, so that means for any individual, like, depending on the preference to accept higher level of risk from RA to RB, right? If you want this individual, like individual A, to accept this offer, you have to offer him WB, but that is actually not going to make this individual very happy. Even though you ask this individual, okay, I'm going to, like, give you, for the same level of risk, I'm going to give you a higher level of risk, what will happen? You can see that individual A still will not be happy, right? Look at the two, if the indifference point, if you make this individual A's utility or individual A's indifference curve, it is basically reducing its, remember, indifference curve's utility is maximized this way, right? So that means that if you ask individual A to accept the offer from farm Y, right, he is moving on to a lower indifference curve. So he is not really happy. He is actually, his happiness is over here. This maximized over here when the matching takes place between farm X and individual A. All right. Now on similar token, right, if you ask this individual B to accept the offer from individual the firm X, what is going to happen? You can see that again, remember this way is the maximizing level. So that means this individual is moving on to a lower indifference curve, right? It's going like, so basically this individual B is unhappy if he has to take the offer from firm X with WA level of wage rate for RA level of risk. Okay. So that means when the matching happens, both individuals are choosing according to their tolerance for risk, and the preference for higher wage rate, and the matching between the employer who is offering like lower level of risk but lower level of wage rate versus higher level of risk and higher level of salary. So the matching is taking place based on different individuals aptitude for or the preference for different levels of risk. Okay, so this is how, like, the matching takes place, okay, between different offers from different firms and the preference pattern of employees. Okay, so through the maximization of utilities of different individuals. Okay, any question? No question, everyone understood everything? Oh, that's splendid, very good. Okay, so now what do you want to do? I'm done with this chapter. So, and I don't want to start a new chapter. So one thing I can do is, let me see if I can, you guys, like, think what we have just covered, and let me see if I can find some problems for you. Okay, I have written quizzes in the past, so let me dig up something if I can find some problems that you guys can solve now. good. I have found one problem. All right, now let me see. Oh, it doesn't let me paste in the whiteboard. All right, so if it doesn't let me paste, then let me see if it lets me paste over here. All right, can you guys see this?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. So let's start working on this. Okay. So the utility curve is given, which is W minus 5 root over P. W is the wage rate, right? Hourly wage rate, and P is the probability of riskiness or the probability of fatal injury in her job. Okay. Now, the wage rate that is the firm is offering is equal to W plus 25P. Okay. All right. So can you mute yourselves, please? Thank you. So if there's one firm that has taken many safety precautions and the probability of fatal injury is 0.01, okay, and then there's another job she has been offered where the probability of fatal injury is 0.05, okay. What is the wage offered by each of these firms? What would you do? This is the job offer curve, right?
Yes, Professor. First one is 10.25.
So basically what you're going to do is plug in the values of P for, let's say, like farm A and farm B, right? So like farm A with that offers a, like, with this riskiness 0.01 and then 0.05. Okay, so you have the two wage offers. And then given her preferences, which job is preferable to Alia? So now you have W. So you have W and now you have P. So you can calculate the value of like two utilities from two jobs, right? Pretty straightforward. Does it make sense? So in question A, you are actually calculating the salaries offered by the two offers, right? So one offer has the riskiness of 0.01 and the other offer has the, like, the riskiness of 0.05, and the respective wage rates can be calculated using this equation. So you have the, like, combination with this P with this W once you plug in the value of P over here, and this P and this W when you plug in the value of P over here. So you have two combinations of W and P. And then given her preferences, which job is preferable to Alia? So you plug in the value of W and P from the first combination, and then you again plug in the value of W and P from the second combination. Whichever has higher utility, Alia will be preferring that, right? Okay. Now Alia has a child and remains single. Given her new circumstances, she is more risk averse. As such, her preference changes and are now are given by W minus 10. So it's becoming skewer. Like before it was -5, now it's -10. So basically her weight on the riskiness is doubled, right? If 5 is the weight on her riskiness, right, it has just doubled. So in this situation, right, she's free to move between two jobs. She was offered before her child arrived. Will she change jobs? So what you have to now do is, like, do the same exercise of all over again. Okay? Does it make sense? All right. So how far are you? Have you
Professor, I
done?
have.
You're
Yes,
done?
Professor. Yes, Professor.
What about everyone else?
We're doing, Professor.
Okay. Work on this. Let me know when you're done. Good job. All right. So those of you who are done, so this is the answer key, right? So for this, if you plug in the values of probability of fatal injury 0.01 to this equation, W is equal to 10 plus 25p, the job offer is 10.25 per hour. Okay, when the probability of fatal injury is 0.05, the job offer is 11.25. If you plug this W and P combination to the utility function, you see that the utility from the first case is 9.75 and the utility from the second job offer is 10.13. So 10.13 is bigger than 9.75. So she will choose the second more riskier job, right? Because it's just 5 times more riskier. And now that her utility has changed, right? So in that situation, look how she's deducting. It's twice as much importance. So before she was deducting 5 W minus 5 root over P. Now is deducting W minus 10 root over P. So it's like, you know, she is deducting the rest. She is basically becoming even more risk averse, right? So she discounting the risk by greater number, right? Giving more weight. So focus on these little things when you solve. So because I might ask you, right, without asking you to solve it, just by looking at the equation, what can you tell me? Okay, very good. So that now if you plug the same, do the same process with the new utility function, like W minus 10p, we see that like the first combination is offering her a utility level of 9.25 and the second combination is offering her a utility of 9.01. So now once she has a kid, she is moving on to a less risky but safer job with a lower payment. Okay, so if a lot of people are done, those of you who are not done, continue to work on this. Okay, so those of you who are done, let's start another problem. All right, can you guys see this second problem?
Yes. Second problem. Yes, Professor.
Okay, start working on this. Okay.
Okay.
Professor, I have done the second one.
Okay, very good. Let's wait a little bit. See what other people are doing. All right, very good. Now, look at the answer keys for question number 2. Okay, what does question number 2 tell you? There are two occupations. That A requires a skilled worker and B doesn't require one, right? And the hourly wage payment in A is given by this equation, and the hourly wage payment in occupation B is given by the second equation. Okay, where S is the years of schooling and A is the probability of death. Okay, because remember A requires skilled worker, so the level of schooling in A and B, so for A S is 16 and for B S is 10 years of education, and for probability A is 0.02 and for B is 0.06. Okay, it's asking you to calculate the average salary paid in each occupation. So you just plug in, everything is given, you just plug in the values of S16 and this is 0.02, and for here you just plug in like S is equal to 10 and PB is equal to 0.06. Okay, that gives you, like for A, the salary level is, average salary is $39 per hour, and for B, the average salary is $13 per hour. Okay, now if I ask you, right, how can you like explain the difference between this 39 and 13, right? How much of it is due to, like, the differences in education, and how much of it is due to the probabilities? How are you going to, so this is what we are going to study in future, right? So you can see that the two, very good. So you can see this is a very straightforward question. Everybody is done with this, right? Okay, so I'm just going to give you for 2-3 minutes to look at the second question, and then I will explain what we are going to do next. All right, now focus on question 1 and question 2, right? So in question 1, what the only parameter was the probability of riskiness, and one of the two jobs was more riskier than the other. So how did we calculate? We looked at the utility differences, right, and the salary differences, and figure out, like, which one they are going to pick. And the salary differences were significantly, like, was significantly higher for the one that had a greater level of riskiness, right? The one that was less risky offered a lower weightage, and the one that was greatly, like, had greater level of riskiness involved, it offered a higher level of wage rate. So very consistent with whatever we have learned. And because there's only one parameter, just like, in the wage equation, the level of riskiness, the differences in salaries you can be completely attributed to, because see, the same equation we are using, so the difference in salaries can be completely attributed to the level of riskiness. So when you have higher level of riskiness, the difference between 11.25 minus 10.25, this $1 difference is because of how much level of 0.04 level of difference in the riskiness, right? Very straightforward. No, like, there's no confusion. But when we have two dimensions, now in our question 2, we are adding two different dimension. One is schooling and other is the level of riskiness. So the job wage offer not only varies by the level of schooling, but it also varies by the level of riskiness. So it's not as straightforward as the first one. So if I want to ask you that, okay, how much of this salary difference between occupation A and B is because of the level of, like, skill difference, right, like the differences in level of education, and how much of this gap between WA and WB is attributed to the level of riskiness involved or the probability of fatality. Okay, you cannot answer it. It's not as straightforward, right, because there are two dimensions involved now. Okay, so it's going to, and also, like, you can see that the equations are not the same, so you cannot basically answer it so that easily. The slopes are different, the intercept is different, right? And then there are two variables, one is schooling and then the other is level of riskiness. Okay, so to these type of questions, when we have, like, this is basically this, if you look at the equations in question 2, they look like a regression equation, right? We have an intercept, and then we have a coefficient on this level of schooling, and we have a coefficient on the level of riskiness, right? So this looks more like a regression situation. So this is, these type of, like, equations actually help us understand, like, we will cover a chapter, the next chapter in future we are going to cover is a situation where we are going to distinguish between, like, the wage gap or the discrimination between two occupation, like, or two, like, between two racial groups, right, or two, like, between male and female, to, like, based on gender or based on sex or based on majority minority, between two groups, right? How much of this salary difference is because of the differences in the skill set, and how much of it is because, like, the employer's preferences or the employer's biasness against a particular group. Okay, so this is, like, where we talk about discrimination in the labor market. And you know that there is a statistical discrimination which is proven that there is a gender gap, right? Females are paid less significantly compared to men, not only because there is a difference in their skill set. We know that men are, on an average, men have higher education than female. So if the difference in wage rate between men and women is attributable to higher education, that is fine. You have greater skills and people are paid according to their marginal productivities. When you have greater skills, you have greater marginal productivity and you are rewarded in higher amounts. So that is perfectly fine in terms of labor economics. But the problem arises when, like, for the same level of skill set or same level of education, females are paid less. right? For the same level of like, you know that in Bangladesh, like in construction, you need to like pieces of stones that have to be broken, like big stones have to be broken and the bricks have to be broken into smaller pieces, right? And the, the workers are paid according to a basket, how many basket of like smaller pieces they have produced. So if they have to break the bigger chunks of stones or like bricks into smaller pieces, and they are paid in piece rates. So each basket, so if you break one basket, you, let's say you are paid like 50 taka. Okay, so men and women, right, they are paid by the same basket. It's not that the basket size for female are smaller or men for men is bigger. It's the same basket, and they are paid. For the men, for the same basket would be paid like at least twice as much as the females. So when men get for the same basket 200 taka, females get 100 taka. Okay, without any skill set, nobody needs any skill to break bricks, right? You just have to like you just have to watch people how they do it, and then you learn instantly. It is nothing like it's not rocket science. Okay, but there is a statistical gender discrimination, and this discrimination is basically gender discrimination on part of the employer, because for the same level of skill set, just because he prefers men, right, he for the same level of work he gives them more salary, just because he doesn't like females. Now why would you think this is the case, right? Like the reason is, first of all, the employers think that they can get away by paying females, because usually females, the females in our part of the world, they are not like, the society doesn't approve of them going outside of their home to work to begin with. So the females that actually have to get engaged in these sort of menial labor, that means they are destitute, right? They are desperate and they need this job. So they won't bargain. If you give them like 100 taka, they are happy. They won't bargain for 200 taka. So remember what we have learned, like the employer wants to give as low a salary as possible, right? So they get away. They basically like get away by giving them less salary. Okay, and the other thing is, they think that women are not going to be consistent workers. For the same basket, that's fine, but the men would be working longer hours. Okay, so they would generate more baskets, where females will be generating less baskets because they have to take care of their children or their husbands, so they have to go home and cook and all. So they will not work longer hours. So if they don't work longer hours, they will be generating less like pieces of stones or bricks for them. So this is basically the mindset. So even if the women works the same number of hours, the employer discriminates, saying that okay, no, you are not going to be consistent. You may not come tomorrow. You might cite that your child is sick and all that. Men don't do that. So I'm going to like please my male workers versus my female workers. So this is the perception of the employer, and this is a preference against females. Okay, and this is like this prevails in like every occupation level. So this is, I'm just giving you a very crude example from the most unskilled work, construction workers, but it's true for any occupation level, even in banks, even in doctors and like professors, like lawyers, where like where skill set is very much same, and sometimes women are more qualified, but they get paid less, and it is statistically proven worldwide, not just developing countries, but it's worldwide. Okay, so this is statistical, this is called statistical discrimination, gender discrimination. Then of course, like minorities are also discriminated in every countries, right? And this is like again the same thing, the minorities are desperate, right? They think, and they are always, remember, why minorities are always vulnerable. So people basically try to exploit their vulnerability and then say, okay, if you don't take this job, then it's okay, I'll give it to someone else. So they kind of like um, take advantage of that fact. But remember one thing, since minorities are vulnerable, when any vulnerable community strongly invest on education. That's what happened to the Jews. That's what happened, like, any vulnerable community. If you look at the Hindus, they are more well educated in Bangladesh versus, like, the majority. Okay, they invest more in education. If you go to, like, their skill set on an average is much higher. They invest in education because, like, remember, education is something, a wealth that cannot be taken away from you. Your money can be taken away from you, but your wealth cannot be. So every minority group, right, basically tries to invest in their skill set, whatever their skill set is. So when you hire a minority, you are basically paying them less for greater level of skills on an average. Okay, so that means there is a discrimination present. Okay, so they are not being rewarded equally for their, they are not rewarded equally, rather they are not rewarded according to their skill set. So that means there is discrimination present. Okay, so in the next chapter, when we talk about this chapter, I don't know what we are going to cover in next chapter, but when we talk about this discrimination, we will talk about how much of the wage gap is attributable to the skill difference and how much of the wage gap is attributable to the preference or discrimination of the employer. Okay, sometimes employers just don't like someone. I don't like your skin color, or I don't like females, right? So this is the perception of the employer and how that plays into offering the salaries to, like, different different groups, be it gender, be it minorities, be it any other groups. Okay, so we'll talk about this. I don't, like, I don't have anything else to say. Unless you have any questions, we can end the class here. You guys have any questions? No. So okay, you guys have a good night, and I will see you Sunday. Okay, and remember, next Tuesday we are going to have an exam. Yes, yes, I think I have uploaded all the notes. To check if it's not there. Chapter was missing, 8 is missing in the file. Okay, yes, if that's the case, I will upload it. Why would chapter 8 be missing? I don't know, like, this Google sharing thing is not really helping. I will upload them. Okay, I'm going to upload your video right now, and I'm going to upload the notes for chapter 8 as well. Okay, all right. So you guys take care. I'll see you Sunday. Have a good night. Okay, bye bye.